So this morning, I'm very excited about our topic, soul alignment. It's not something that the average person thinks about. We're um, we're not so attuned in the world uh, as human beings as yet, not so attuned to our higher nature. I'm going to talk about why that is and how it is that we're quite uh, identified with the part of ourself that believes itself to be separate and alone and fragile, and we're going to look pretty seriously at how what that results in our world, operating from egocentricity, and why there is this need to operate from soul-centeredness. I've been saying throughout our COVID kind of shelter at home time, when we've been doing these kind of classes together online, I've been saying that it's my deep conviction that the next evolution of human consciousness is a shift from being ego-centered to soul-centered. That we're in the kind of beginning processes of that, and that's one of the great reasons for and invitations of difficulties in our life, difficulties in our lives individually and collectively as well. So this is what I'd like to do this morning. This is the agenda. I'd like to do a centering meditation. And then I'd like to spend a little time looking at conceptually the shift from egocentricity to soul centricity, from being aligned with and identified with and operating from our egos, compared to being centered in, aligned with, and operating from our souls, what that even looks like. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll do a final meditation where it all gets put together, and it's my intention that you will be able to experience this in a very real way. So, so let's just do a little meditating together to kind of get us centered, to bring us into the heart, to open us to the possibility of soul alignment before we discuss these topics this morning. So let the breath become slower and deeper. If you do this every time you meditate or do spiritual practices, then as soon as you move toward a slower, deeper kind of breath rhythm, the mind will recognize this as an invitation to center and to get quiet and to open up to higher consciousness. So a slower, fuller, deeper breath. Breathe your inhalation all the way down into the belly, and then watch it rise through the ribs and up into the clavicles. And then empty out from the top down. The bottom of the exhalation, just use a little stomach musculature to pull in the navel toward the spine, and then relax the belly and drink in your next inhalation. Breathing in this way, slowly and intentionally, with a very full and refined breath, has a quieting, centering, purifying effect on all the levels of the personality. The personality is made up of the physical, emotional, and lower mental bodies. So breathing in this way, this longer, slower, deeper breath settles us into our centers. Quiets the mind, invites the heart to open, to really be present in the moment, centered in yourself. Now, we're going to do this later in the second meditation, but just as you're resting in your heart center, just have an intuitive sense or feel for a higher reality. that you are, as you sit in your heart center, opening to or inviting connection with higher consciousness. That your consciousness lifts out of the lower chakras up into the heart, throat, third eye, and crown with the intention to open and receive. Not trying to create a certain kind of experience, not forcing anything, not pushing an agenda, just resting in your heart and being open to, welcoming of your soul, your soul's consciousness, higher consciousness. And the mind doesn't need to understand what it's opening to. In fact, largely the mind cannot fully understand the mystery of what we're opening to. But we can learn to be in a more open and receptive posture or attitude. Now just observe what you're experiencing. Again, we're not looking for something special. Observe what's happening in the body. Observe what's happening emotionally. And also observe what's happening mentally. And now be a little more interested in the observer, the you that is watching. Be conscious of being the watcher. And be interested to see whether this opening to higher consciousness has had effect on your sense of being conscious, or to say it a different way, your sense of being aware, and of being aware that you are aware. And notice, this is important, that the observer, the witnessing consciousness, is always in perfect peace. Now, I'm not saying the personality is always in perfect peace, quite the contrary. I'm not saying the mind or the emotions are in perfect peace. I'm saying what's observing the mind and the emotions and physical sensations is always in perfect peace. See if you can notice this. Check this out within yourself. Let a sense of yourself as awareness, as the observer, grow and expand. It's not limited to the body. The heart opens, consciousness expands. You have a greater experience of yourself, not limited to the body and to the boundaries of skin. But also, it's not a trance state. It's not a kind of zoning out. It's a crystal clear, awake awareness with no particular object, which may, for some of us, take a little getting used to. We're so used to awareness being connected to, even attached to, external objects or aspects of experience, that to just rest in and as awareness takes a little practice. Again, notice that the observer, the witnessing consciousness, is always in perfect peace. No matter what it's watching, it could be watching great anxiety in the personality, great sadness, great trauma in the personality experience. It could be watching that and is still and always in perfect peace. This is the equanimity of the soul. Soul consciousness is just a different word for witness or observer consciousness. Awareness is a function of the soul, not the lower mind. And that is why awareness is not confined to the body and can be ever and always in perfect peace, no matter what it's watching. So this is why one way to become aware of the soul, of soul alignment, or to move in the direction of soul alignment, is just to become aware of yourself as being aware, aware of yourself as awareness. Again, we're moving away from, in this particular meditation, any sense of something being mystical or special or, brilliantly full of light, or, the mind expects something special when it thinks of the spiritual. Now we're just seeing, oh, this is the awareness that actually I'm using all the time to be aware of my world and to be aware of my experience. The soul is ever and always present, working in and through the personality. And the quickest way to become aware of that is to become aware of yourself as awareness. And if you let yourself drop back into that awareness, like let go of concern about the objects of awareness, and just drop back into the vast, spacious field of awareness itself, you begin to feel the qualities of the soul: profound love, pervasive peace and tranquility, a never-changing equanimity and bliss. And just before we end this first meditation, I invite you to cultivate and to hold an intention that would sound something like, it is my intention this morning to experience soul alignment. It is my intention this morning to experience the contrast between being ego-centered and soul-centered. To be made aware of my choice to make the shift from being centered in my ego to being centered in my soul. I invite you to make that your intention if you choose. All right, then take a nice deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes. All right, let's move in the direction of these intentions to just understand. We can't choose between things that we're not aware of. So if there's anything I would want you to take away this morning, it would be the understanding that as we develop it, we come into the capacity to choose what center we're operating from. Now, I suppose that not everybody is at that place in their evolution where they could make that choice. The soul has to come online. We have to evolve to a place where our perception is refined enough to even be aware of the subtle impulses of the soul, the call of the soul for the personality to like turn to it. But everybody on this call, everybody watching this video is there. You wouldn't be interested in such a conversation if you weren't already feeling this tug to be aware of higher consciousness and to function in a little higher way. So I want you to go away today understanding, at least in some kind of way, the contrast between ego and soul, and that you actually have a choice to make the shift. And because you have the choice to make the shift, then we can begin to practice that choice. Just as practically as you made the choice to sign on and be a part of what we're experiencing today. So I'd like to just walk you through a very kind of superficial look at the contrast between being ego-centered and being soul-centered. I'm not going to spend lots of time, and this list is certainly not comprehensive by any means. Just a few ideas that will begin to give you a sense of, oh, I see, I get that this is what my experience is when I'm operating from the ego. And I see that, oh, this is the possibility of experience. when I'm open to the shift uh, to the soul. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Love this technology. And see if I can find, there we go. Okay, I hope you can all see this. Can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see this page with words? Thumbs, thank you. Okay, so it's very important that we understand the ego isn't bad or wrong. It's a progression. It's part of the evolution of consciousness. The theory says, there was a time when I was a rock, or this consciousness that occupies this body was, occupying a lizard, or occupying a spruce, or occupying, there's a progression in consciousness as it becomes more and more awake within form. There's, of course, in the spectrum of consciousness, the majority of the soul isn't preoccupied with form. There is a part of the soul that has entered into form, kind of lost itself in form, and is finding its way back toward the reality, the truth of who and what it actually is, as a part of divine spirit. So the ego isn't a bad thing. I don't want you to get that impression. We don't kill the ego. There's language like this. We have to smash the ego. We have to overcome. It's a battle, and we have to. I don't subscribe to that. I used to, and it found that it created a great division in me. A one part of me fighting another part of me, and that internal civil war did not lead to greater evolution, greater peace, greater joy, greater consciousness is what I mean to say. So I want you to understand, we grow beyond the ego as we continue to evolve. Just like we don't have to kill the child that we were at age 5 in order to become the adult. We just grow out of it. Most people do. So there is this growing evolutionary process. And so the ego is just a stage in the process of consciousness waking up to its true nature. So let's just look at some of the qualities of the ego. And again, I don't mean to be looking at these in any kind of critical or negative way. Let's just state that here, living in ego-centeredness is living from the feeling of being separate and alone, abandoned and unworthy of love. Now, everybody has this. There's nobody that escapes this. We all have this and work through it. This sense that I'm abandoned by God, by the light, by wholeness. I'm lost in the realm of form and phenomena. I'm separate and alone, and I feel not good enough, and I'm worried about rejection and being ostracized by the tribe. There's a growing fear of pain and sickness and death. Part of living in the ego is that the ego always feels like a victim. Again, I don't mean that in any kind of critical way. We have been trained in this culture to say, I feel the way I do because of, and then we point the finger outside of ourselves and we say, because of you, because of the weather, because of current administration, because of COVID, because. We say my experience, my state of mind is determined by something outside of myself. That's what victim mentality is. Now, I don't mean to say that we haven't experienced being victims. Absolutely, we have, especially as children, experienced great trauma and sometimes great hardship and abuse. Victim mentality is something different than that. It's going through life feeling as though my experience is determined by something outside of my control. By the way people treat me, by the way people think of me, by how hot it is or how cold it is, or by the fact that I whatever it is, you get the idea. So ego-centered living is very, very much a victim, because the ego doesn't feel any sense of personal power. That's just the nature of the ego. It centers mostly in the root chakra, where all day long it's concerned about safety and survival, thinking really only of itself. And again, we have this word, oh, you're so self-centered, you're so ego-centered. Ego-centered means that I'm absolutely centered in the experience of being a fragile, fearful, inadequate, separate self. And it causes us, when we're in that, that egocentricity, to care really only for me and mine. Right? I only care about my well-being and my safety and survival. I heard the story one time of a friend of mine who I consider my spiritual teacher, who was in India, and he was watching this this monkey who was kind of the head of his group, going around and stealing bananas that other monkeys were picking up, including little baby monkeys. A little baby monkey would like have picked up a banana and this, you know, this adult leader monkey would run over with its arms spilling over with bananas and grab the banana out of the hands of the little baby monkey in order to have it for itself. That is egocentricity. You know, and most of us on this call, of course, would never dream of doing such a thing. We're, you know, our narcissism, our being centered in ourselves, our being worried about me and mine, usually is more subtle than that. But, you know, if we watch, if we're very careful to watch, it's still very much there. The ego is always striving to be safe. And that means ways of striving to be safe. I've just wrote a few of them down here. Seeking to be special. If I can be special in the tribe, I'm safe. Needing to be in control. Control is a fear management strategy. And so there's always this effort to be in control. And usually it's to try to be in control of the outer world, since the mentality of the ego says, I am feeling the way I'm feeling anxious because of what's happening out there. Then we try to amp up control of what's going on out there to manage the anxiety we're feeling in here. Do you see how that works? The need to be right. This is a big one. This drives so much of our interactions with people, and as individual egos group up with other egos, we have an idea of what's right and what's not right. And everything that's right we like, and everything that's wrong feels threatening to us. So this happens, you know, in groups. It happens in political parties. It happens in religions. It happens, you know, between nations and races, where groups of us are feeling threatened by them. We know what's right, and we will even go to war to defend that and to fight against people who hold a different sense of what's right. More people, you may be very familiar with this stat, but more people have been killed in the name of God than in all the other world wars combined throughout human history. In the name of God. God, like, meaning what I believe to be right and what I believe to be aligned with is the right thing and yours is the wrong thing. And because you hold yours against mine, then we have to go to war. A very common way of seeking safety is seeking money and status and power. Those are three safety-seeking strategies that are promoted and even praised in our culture. Overachieving. Another big one is wanting, getting, and hoarding. This is some of the ways that the ego seeks safety. Wanting, getting, and hoarding. Competing with others, seeing others as threats, as we've seen. Now, all of this results in chronic anxiety and insecurity. Now, you'd think, well, if I'm doing all this, this safety seeking, wouldn't I feel more safe? But the problem is all the ways that we're seeking safety doesn't actually result in any kind of feeling of safety. And so it just creates greater anxiety and insecurity. If I need to be in control to be safe, and yet I know I'm not in control, can you see how that's just a setup for greater anxiety? Constant competition between us and them, profound imbalances and inequality amongst peoples. You know, I mean, just the example that we all know is that 1% of the world's population owns 50% of the world's wealth, right? So it's just such a great example of this wanting, getting, and hoarding taken to an extreme. I'm going to get more. I'm going to get more bananas. I'm going to get more bananas. I'm going to get more bananas. I'm even going to get bananas from you if I have to, so that I can have the most amount of bananas so that I can feel safe. I can feel special. I can feel like I'm somebody, right? So again, this is the constant um, effort of the ego is to feel safe, to feel like somebody, to feel special. Again, resulting in a disregard for the well-being of those who are not me and mine, right? The ego develops this boundary. It's just me and maybe a few of mine. And what happens outside of that, I don't care. I don't want to watch it. I don't care about it. I only care about me and mine. This is ego-centered thinking. And finally, a disregard for the condition of the natural world, right? The way that we treat the planet, the way that we, in egocentricity, treat fellow beings, animals, nature. It's just almost incomprehensible. Now, again, I just want to emphasize these things are not evil, bad, wrong in that kind of sense. We're in the process of evolving. And when consciousness is still very much contracted down into the root chakra and caring very much only about oneself, these are the natural things that come out of that. Now, if we look around the world today, can you see how this list, a very simple, superficial list, helps to explain the craziness that's happening in our world today? So this is my way of suggesting what most of you already believe. I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, that what's needed in the world today is a shift in consciousness. It's not a shift in policy, it's a shift in consciousness. A pervasive shift in the center from which we live. Let's look at just a few, again, this is just a superficial list. Let's just look at a few ideas of what it means to live from the soul. If we could shift from living from egocentricity to soul centricity. When one is soul aligned and living in and from and as the soul, one knows oneself to be an internal expression of spirit, an intentional embodiment of divine wisdom, love, and power. That's what the soul is. That's what you and I are as souls, eternal expressions of spirit. And this is why, as eternal expressions of spirit, there is no fear of death. For the soul, death doesn't exist. The soul moves in and out of form from lifetime to lifetime and knows itself to be beyond those forms, moves in and out of the human drama from lifetime to lifetime and knows itself to be beyond that drama. In soul-centered living, there is a profound sense of wholeness and connection and interdependence. As opposed to the ego that thinks itself to be completely and utterly separate, the soul knows itself to be a part of the whole, an integral part of the whole. And therefore is not at war with, doesn't feel threatened by other souls, feels that all things are expressions of the same spirit. Utterly free of fear and the feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness. In soul-centered living, there is love and concern for the well-being of others, because others are seen and experienced as aspects of oneself, one's larger self. For awareness, at the soul level, everything that is perceived in awareness, one identifies with, right? All forms are expressions of one spirit, and the soul lives in this truth, and so feels great love and concern for the well-being of others, not just for this particular form. There's the desire to be of service, to help and to lift others. This is one of the great indicators that the soul is coming online in the life, is that one begins to feel a sense of, I wish I could be of greater service. I wish there was something I could do to be of help. Oh, I see, you know, and it doesn't have to be at a global level, you know. My wife, I watch her go to incredible extent, lengths, inconveniencing herself, even sometimes putting herself in danger to try to catch that stray little dog that's running along the side of the road. And you know that it's like, it's somehow gotten out of its yard or it's gotten lost somehow. And my wife's heart just like breaks right open, and she will like leap out of a moving car to try to catch this dog and to find its home. Well, so that's the sign that the soul is online. This kind of love and concern, this compassion for the suffering of others, this desire to be of service in some, you know, it doesn't have to be some huge way. It can just be, I see that my neighbor is like hobbling on their cast. Is there something I can do for them today? Some sense of doing something for others. Others, you know, becomes a point of focus rather than just me and mine. And so there is the prioritizing of collaboration for the soul, of bringing all resources together for the highest good of all. And you see, in ego centricity, it's completely different. I'm going to get as many bananas as I can, and I'm going to store them so that I can make sure that I'm never hungry. And the soul that doesn't have this sense of separation, that feels its connection to all things, then prioritizes collaboration, not competition. Collaboration, the bringing together of the world's resources in order to serve the highest good of the world's beings. There's a great movement right now away from competition and toward collaboration. And these are signs, slowly growing like signs that soul consciousness is coming online. There's an understanding, even you know, in businesses that have no interest in spirituality at all, that there is a wisdom in collaborating. Soul-centered living is seeing, experiencing the realm of spirit manifesting in and through the dimension of form and phenomena. We talked about this last Wednesday night, the capacity to perceive the reality that is behind the appearance, right? So last Wednesday night, we defined illusion as living in form and phenomenon while not seeing or not acknowledging in any way the presence of and the infusion of spirit. So the soul sees that spirit is the ground of being. It is the source of all things, and everything is an expression of it. So the soul sees the spirit in any and all forms of matter. The soul interprets all events and experiences as inviting greater consciousness and greater awakening. In contrast to the ego feeling victimized by all things. So that the soul sees, for instance, great opportunities for healing and for evolution and for awakening in the experience of COVID-19. And all that's been taking place on the planet. It's not saying that it does cartwheels with suffering. It's not saying that it doesn't perceive how painful and difficult it is. It's that it sees that there is a purpose here. I want to just share with you the concept of the refiner's fire, which is what I thought at first to name this satsang today. Some of you are acquainted with the refiner's fire. This is actually a concept given in the Bible in several places in the New Testament. The idea is that if I'm a miner and I'm going out into a field and or a mine and I dig out a chunk of gold, the gold is still very much full of minerals and dross and not gold properties. And so the miner will take the gold to the refiner, and the refiner will crank up the heat, the fire extremely hot, and put the gold into the fire. Now, gold is an interesting kind of property. It will melt down in the heat, but it will not burn up. So everything else that isn't gold burns up in the fire. So that when the fire is over, the gold comes out just pure gold, right? So there's this spiritual application to the refiner's fire, which is you are pure gold, you are the soul. And there is some portion of you and me that have forgotten that and have gotten identified with that which is not our true nature. And that's created suffering for us. And so the universe in its wisdom provides us with experiences that will help us to detach from what we are not and to identify with what we are. So the soul sees that all experience, as painful as some of it may be, is the refiner's fire, inviting the dropping away of everything that I am not and a coming into full remembrance of and living in the magnificence of the soul as the truth of what I am. Now, this is a lovely concept. The problem is, if I'm identified with the not gold properties, then when the fire is burning those things up, I feel like I'm dying. Do you understand what I'm saying? Remember, some of you were on the call, maybe it was our last satsang. I told about the story about that gold Buddha that had been covered in mud and ceramic to hide it from an invading army, and it had been forgotten for 200 years. And so then it took monks taking hammer and chisel and chiseling away the mud so that the gold could be seen. That's what the refiner's fire is. That's the purpose of challenging, difficult, even painful events. Those events are the hammer and chisel, chipping away at our mud in order to free our gold, right? But if I'm identified with and as the mud, then as the hammer and chisel chips me away, I feel quite threatened by that process, right? But if I'm identified as gold, then the chipping away of the mud is a liberating process. Are you following? So what feels so threatening to the ego, these life events that invite us to let go of the old and lean into the new, what feels so threatening to the ego actually feels liberating to the soul, because the mud is dropping away. If we can use times such as this to collaborate with divine wisdom and with grace for the letting go of everything that we are not, the letting go of the old that has never really worked for us, certainly isn't working now, and to lean into the new and to participate in the new, which is operating more and more from heart and soul. Then these events, we will look back on them and say, these were, although very, very challenging, these were incredibly important. These were points of change for us as individuals and as a species. A few more here. Soul-centered living means operating from a sense of inspired purpose. You all know this language, your soul's purpose. You're here for a reason. And the more we align with the soul, the more that reason comes to the surface, and the more we have the opportunity to get into alignment with and to take action in that or from that soul's purpose, the more fulfilling and meaningful the life becomes. All thoughts, words, and actions are motivated by love from the soul, with peace, harmony, and wholeness as its goal. But this doesn't mean that peace and harmony is the only way. The soul recognizes that sometimes there is a great destruction that has to take place. Again, the fire is going to break everything down in order for the purification to take place. So it doesn't mean that the soul is just wanting everything to be, fairy tales and rainbows and flowers. And there's the understanding that the old has to drop away, and that can be an incredibly disruptive, challenging time. But the goal is peace and harmony and wholeness. And finally, there's a willingness to endure discomfort, to work through all karmas and life lessons in order to find and live from the truth. All right, so these are just, these are, my intention in providing this list for you is just so that you can see the difference between soul and ego, and what it might look like to shift both individually and collectively from living from the ego to living from the soul. All right, so I want to pause for a moment and give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have about this little piece before we go into our meditation. Do you have a question at all about soul-centered living, kind of compared to ego-centered living? Go ahead, ask your question.
Me?
Yes,
Lynn?
please.
Okay.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Thank you. I can. Thank you, Lynn.
Oh, okay, great. Scott, I'm wondering, is it possible for our soul to be tired? Having lived through the campfire and now the pandemic and putting classes online and finally getting settled into a home, which is wonderful after all that, I feel as if my soul just wants to sit and be and stare at a wall for like a long time. And it's a very deep, I'm at peace. And in a way, the pandemic and working out of my home is perfect for this, but it actually feels so deep, as if my soul is tired and just wants to, okay, well, what is God's will for me here? And I just feel like it should just be in rest and be at peace. And
yes. So that sounds like guidance to me. I would suggest that the soul, as we're defining it here, it never gets tired.
Okay, that's kind of what seems like it wouldn't.
But nevertheless, that deep sense of you're needing peace and rest, and to rest back in being, and not concern yourself with doings right now and so forth, that sounds like guidance. That sounds like wisdom and guidance coming to you. And okay. I would really encourage you to pay close attention to it.
It's so counter our culture, but
right.
It's so what's needed, like it's like a renewal, a need to just renew myself back to.
That's right. Well, and I think it's one of the things that we're kind of invited to do during this time when we've had to shelter at home, we've had to slow down, we've had to stop all of our doings and our list of things that we do to stay busy and to prove our worth and value and to, so forth. That for many of us has been stripped away, and it's invited us to kind of sit back into ourselves. Now, for the ego that has no training in this, staring at the wall is terrifying. Especially for any of us egos, and I've had one of these in my lifetime, where we've used our accomplishments to prove our worth and value, right? Where our performance equals worth. If we perform well, that means we're somebody special. any of us that have had any of that, then this time is very difficult, where we're invited to let go of our doings and to sit back and to discover a deeper layer within, like to really discover the soul, the inherent preciousness and worth of who and what we are at the soul level. And this takes non-doing. It takes sitting and being. And for many of us, you know, it took me years to get to where I was, I found the value of and the deep peace in not emphasizing doings all the time.
Got it.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you, Lynn. Yes, please, Jamie.
You were referring, you came in late, I admit that, but you came in late, and I came in late, sorry. And I heard you in the last bit describing how the fire of the refining happens and we need it to happen. Can you give an example of such a refining?
I'll give you an extreme example, and I don't suggest that this is, you know, what's going to happen with everybody, but my sister, 27 years ago, my sister's 7-year-old son died of a brainstem tumor. And it was the most horrific thing our family had ever been through.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't get into the details of it, but I will say this, that my sister came alive in that fire. She'd lived quite a kind of a shutdown life. She has amazing gifts and talents, and was living in a kind of constricted and somewhat dissociated way. Her life, the way that she dealt with pain at that time was to just kind of dissociate, right? And through the process of being with Trevor when he died and afterwards, she became so committed to living in the present and leaning into the pain.
Wow.
And aspects of herself just dropped away. I mean, chunks of herself dropped away, and she wrote a book, and she shifted careers, became a chaplain, began to sit with others, recorded a number of, she's an incredible singer, recorded a number of singers. She just came alive. Now, again, none of us would say, oh, that was a good thing that happened. That's not at all what we're saying here, right? We're just saying that there is a deeper purpose for things that at the time we don't know and we would not choose. If we had a choice, we would not choose it. I went through a profoundly painful divorce in 2001. And it was the most, aside from Trevor's death, it was the most painful thing I've ever been through. And for all of us, all 4 of us, my ex-wife and my 2 kids, it had this, in the long run, this incredible, quickening, lifting, maturing kind of effect. You know, I don't know what my children would have become had their mother and I stayed together, but both of them are therapists today, helping other people, because they were so fascinated at, first of all, just to get through their own pain. You know, we had thousands of conversations about that. So again, I don't mean to say, oh, this happened because of that. I don't have the wisdom to put that kind of cause and effect together. I'm suggesting that we can look back and see that these incredibly painful events had this incredibly purifying, maturing, awakening effects on us.
Yeah, prioritizing all kinds of things.
Yes, yes, yes. Does that help with your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Scott?
Yeah, Gwen, yes.
Two things. One, can we get your hand out?
I don't have a way to get this all because I don't have any, you know, your emails and everything, but you can take, you can watch the, vid, and take a screenshot of it.
Good idea. I'll do that. Thanks. The other thing is I just want to say to Lynn, self-care is not a luxury.
Yeah, good. That's good. It's not a luxury. It's an absolute requirement. Self-care is an aspect of self-love. Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions before we go into our meditation? Questions, comments, anything I can clarify?
Scott?
Yes, please. Hey, Brent.
Hey, when you were talking about taking care of, not just thinking of ourselves, something that it seems like because of the pandemic, a lot of people are communicating on the internet now. And sometimes to me, it seems like there are some people who really need to hear that message and are constantly speaking and making noise. And then there are a lot of people who have a lot of things to say. I would count myself in this second group, but are constantly second guessing ourselves and don't say anything because we're so preoccupied with this thought, like, I shouldn't be selfish and I should always be thinking of other people. So I should just stay quiet and, you know, meditate the world into a better place instead of using my voice. So
Yes.
And I know that's all fear-based. So is there another side of the coin, another message for people who like that, who just can't seem to say anything, even though it kills them inside because they see things that they believe in and they know that no matter what they say, half the world is going to hate them?
Yeah. So again, anytime we're operating from a sense of fear and inadequacy, we're operating from the ego, right? And so there's all kinds of different ways. Sometimes the ego can manifest in great arrogance, right? And narcissism. And sometimes the ego can manifest more in a self-limiting, I don't have anything to offer, or I'm afraid of the fallout, but just the sense of it, anytime we're operating from fear or a sense of inadequacy, you can know we're absolutely coming from the ego. So the antidote is to operate from the soul, is to little by little learn to, and we're gonna get into this now, how to align with, how to attune with higher consciousness and let higher consciousness operate through, right? So the more we can operate, the more we can connect from soul consciousness, the more we can connect with soul consciousness, the more the fears and the feeling of inadequacy begins to fall away. So this becomes the practice then, is rather than trying to find some kind of motive or some kind of reason that will get me past my fear, instead of that, working directly with the fear from soul consciousness. And recognizing, Brent, I'm speaking to you specifically, but it's true for many of you here, you do have something to say in the world. Right? And your soul knows this, and part of your soul's purpose is to find your way to freedom in order to be able to speak it. That's your soul's purpose, right? Is to be of service and to garner all the wisdom that you have experienced and collected in your lifetime and other lifetimes, and offer that in a way. When we do it from the soul, we're not really worried about that half of the world that's not going to get us and that will hate us. We're just not worried about it. You know, for me, I learned some time ago, because I've had all the fears you've described, I've had them. And at some point, the message to me was from guidance, Scott, just do the things that you love to do in meditation and invite people to join you. And some people will come and some people won't come. Every time I send my emails out, every single week I send my emails out, making people aware of these sessions, I get people asking to be unsubscribed from my email list. Well, they're just simply not resonant with this, and that's totally fine. You know, I'm not saying at all that what I have to say is so profound everybody ought to be, you know, loving it and embodying it. Not at all. Everybody is at a different kind of place in their evolution and in their process. But there are people, Brent, that need to hear what you have to say, and they're waiting for you to show up in and from your soul.
Yeah, that's the problem, is not knowing when that's happening or not, I guess.
So again, the antidote to all of it is spend the majority of your practices aligning with your soul. Not trying to figure it out, because then you're in the personality trying to figure out how to get beyond the limitations of the personality. It's not going to happen that way, I guarantee you. The soul already knows the way, what it wants, how to do it, how to use the personality as its instrument. All right. So maybe one more question, and then we'll get to our meditation. I don't want to run out of time for our meditation. Anybody else have one more question? Thanks,
Mo?
Brent, for that. Yeah,
Oh,
hi.
hi, Scott. This is not a question, but it's just a quick comment.
Great.
And I wanted to especially say this to Lynn because who's gone through Paradise Fire and the pandemic now. And I've, all of us have experienced loss in many different levels. I mean, some tremendous loss, some smaller losses, some just loss of the life that we had that maybe we loved, which I did. And I was a Paradise teacher, but I didn't live up there. But anyway, I was talking to my daughter and just saying, and then as I think Brent maybe said, you feel guilty for complaining at all because so many people have it so much worse than you. So you like kind of beat yourself up. And so I think talking to my daughter who's 36, maybe near Brent's age, and just saying those things. And she goes, Mom, just give yourself some grace. And that comment, I say it to myself every day now. And thank her for that wisdom as a young person who has to do that with herself. Anyway, so to Lynn, anybody else, I really like remembering that. So give ourselves some grace.
Thank you, Marie. That's a beautiful thing. Beautiful. All right, so let's get into our second meditation. So I invite you, if you're not already, sit up nice and tall. We're going to do some more breathing, but it's going to be a little different than we did early. We're going to do it like we did it last Wednesday. For those of you who are here, we're going to breathe in through the nose and down to the root chakra. And then our exhalation is you bring the energy up to the heart and breathe it out in all directions. Breathe in and down, up and out. So relax the body, really be open to the energetics of this breathing practice. Breathe in through the nostrils, feel the energy move down through the chakric system to the root chakra. Pause there for a moment at the top of the inhalation, let the energy grow and develop. And then when you exhale, bring the energy up the central channel, up into the heart, and radiate the breath out in all directions. Now keep going as you're going. This time breathe in and down to the root. And when you breathe out, bring it up to the head center and breathe out of the head in all directions. Concentrate best you can. Now, one more round of breathing in through the nose, down to the root chakra, and then as you bring it up, send it out the crown, kind of like as a fountain. We'll do some of these. And begin to sense as you exhale out the crown that you're exhaling out into higher consciousness, out into soul consciousness. At the end of your next breath round, keep your attention in the space above the head. 6 to 8 inches above the head. And cultivate or feel your intention to connect with the soul. Your deep, heartfelt desire to live from higher consciousness. To live in a way that brings greater healing and awakening to yourself, in a way that could be of greater benefit to others. Rest your awareness in the space above the head, 6 to 8 inches. Opening to the highest consciousness. And now, if you choose to do this, totally your choice. It's okay if you would choose not to, but if you choose to do this, then invite your soul to inhabit this personality in ways that you have never yet experienced. To flood down into your body mind, into the physical, emotional, and lower mental bodies. To make use of the personality as an instrument for love and truth and change in the world. Stay centered in your higher chakras and in the space above, and just invite the light of higher consciousness to flood into your personality self. Feel as though there is an energy that is pouring down into you. Visualize it as light. And that this light energy is actually creating a bridge between a connection between the soul and the personality. Filling the head, filling the heart, filling the belly, filling the whole body, filling your aura or energy field. With a sense of limitless intelligence and inspiration. a sense of unconditional love and compassion for all beings. And a sense of power to live in the world in a self-sovereign way. Self-sovereign, capital S, self-sovereign. To where no longer held back by consensus consciousness, no longer limited by your karmas and your conditioning. There's a freedom to live from truth and love in the world in a way that helps to raise human consciousness and be of great benefit to all beings. Now, very important, if the personality is feeling any resistance to this, let the light pour to that resistance. If the personality is feeling any fear about this, or feeling unworthy about this, that's totally fine. These are just expressions of the ego. Let the light pour to this. Invite the light to pour to any sense of fear, inadequacy, or resistance. Have a sense that your energy is like still lifting up, opening, being receptive to higher consciousness. Feeling intuitively, feeling into the, quote, space above the head, not physical space, it's the space of higher consciousness above the head. And inviting the soul to continue to lay down these cords of light to create this bridge of connection and attunement between the soul and the personality. Those cords of connection and attunement from the soul being laid down deeply into all aspects of the personality. To bring truth, to bring light, to bring profound love, freedom, purification, transformation, and liberation to the personality. Just have a sense that the very vibration of your being is being raised, quickened. Your consciousness expanding, deep and pervasive peace coming online. A sense of purpose in the world, even if it's not clear exactly what it is. A growing desire to be of service. The light continues to pour down and in. Begin now to see that that light extends down below the root chakra into the earth. That there is just a current of this light continuing to flow through you now. From high above the head, down through the entire system, down all the way to the center of the earth. that the light of higher consciousness, the light of divine consciousness, is anchoring onto the planet through you. That you continue to give permission for this light to have its way with you, this higher consciousness to heal you and transform you at the deepest level of your being, so that this instrument or personality can be used by higher consciousness on behalf of the healing of this planet, the raising of human consciousness. Now feel this light of higher consciousness, especially accumulating in the heart center. It's flowing through the entire system. It's filling your body and energy field. It's penetrating down to the earth's core. And now feel it just become radiant in the heart center, like the sun itself has taken up residence in your chest. And it becomes so powerful that it can't be contained, and it bursts forth and flows, radiates to everyone else on this call. Just feel that the light in your heart flows now to everyone else who's involved in this class this morning, but also anyone who observes this class later on. Feel the light in your heart become so intense that it flows to everyone else in this call in a way that serves their deepest purification and transformation and liberation. Feel how this light delights in being of service to others. Let it continue to radiate out to all the people that you care about in your life, your family and friends and associates, everyone that you're even casually associated with. Let the light shine to them as well. Again, in a way that serves their purification, transformation, and liberation. And I can feel how the soul delights in being of service to others. And then let the light continue to radiate out into the world, to encompass and embrace the world and all beings. The light radiates to the planet herself in just the way that she needs right now. That it radiates powerfully to all those that are suffering, sick, dying, grieving, anxious, sad, despairing. And see if for a moment you can just absolutely forget yourself. Like there's no you here. There's just the light pouring through. No separate self. There's just light channeling light. There's just bliss channeling light. I just feel in this way what it's like to be the soul. And I invite you to repeat after me this soul mantra. It has 4 lines. It goes like this. I'll say it and then invite you to repeat it after me. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Fixed design meaning I have a purpose, a divinely given purpose. Let's try it again. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Now just come back into your heart center, back into the light. Just rest for a moment longer here in the light. And we'll end the meditation with the Bodhisattva prayer. I'll say it again line by line, and you repeat it after me if you choose to. May all beings be happy and free. May all beings be safe and well. May all beings awaken to their true nature. May all beings live together in peace and harmony. Let's repeat it again. This is the prayer of your soul for all beings. May all beings be happy and free. May all beings be safe and well. May all beings awaken to their true nature. May all beings live together in peace and harmony. And so it is. Please take a nice deep breath. Feel the way the body is being supported by your couch or chair. Stay centered in your heart as you begin to open your eyes. Be aware of being aware. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. I'm grateful for this body mind, but I am identified with soul consciousness.